as we mentioned, the Prime Minister's touchdown in the US for APEC. Senior political reporter Trudy McIntosh is there. Senior political reporter Trudy McIntosh joins us from San Francisco. Trudy, the much-anticipated meeting between Presidents Biden and Xi has happened. Some really interesting insights into the way the Chinese leader sees that relationship between the world's two great powers.
Well, Kieran, there's a reason why all eyes were on San Francisco today, and that is because of the very rare nature of these sort of talks. To see the US President Joe Biden face-to-face with China's leader Xi Jinping, it just doesn't happen that often. They haven't actually met since last year. It's only the second time the two have met since Joe Biden was president in 2021. But as you say, we rarely get to see this sort of frank insight from China's president, face-to-face with Joe Biden, willing to talk about the fact that, yes, they do need to work together, but they can't be trying to influence the workings of the other person's country. So fascinating to see what Xi Jinping has to say there. The talks in the end went for more than 4 hours at a lavish retreat outside of San Francisco. Incredible security there on the ground. We did get a glimpse of them, though, as they came outside from the lunch that they'd had in front of the cameras, the pair walking side by side. One journalist even lobbing in a question asking how the meeting had went, and we heard from the president that it went well. In terms of the outcomes of this, really interesting to see another deal when it comes to fentanyl, preventing more of that drug coming here to America. Don't forget, though, that was something agreed to as well by Donald Trump years ago, and China never followed through, and that's critical in this. They can agree to things here, but the critical matter is whether they're actually implemented down the track. So too with that military-to-military dialogue resuming once again. But let's have a look at China's President Xi Jinping face-to-face with Joe Biden, his assessment on the state of the relationship.
The China-US relationship, which is the most important bilateral relationship in the world, should be perceived and envisioned in the broad context of the accelerating global transformations unseen in a century. It should develop in a way that benefits our two peoples and fulfills our responsibility for human progress. For two large countries like China and the United States, turning their back on each other is not an option. It is unrealistic for one side to remodel the other, and conflict and confrontation has unbearable consequences for both sides.
We've seen readouts from both sides here, the US and China, putting out their own statements about what was discussed in this meeting. And they traversed a lot of ground, you'd have to say, from issues that divide them, but more broader global issues too, the ongoing war in Gaza, the issues in Ukraine, the global economy. So much for these two biggest superpowers, two biggest militaries, two biggest economies to discuss. But fascinating to see the insights on Taiwan and how prominent that was in this discussion. This is from China's foreign ministry in their statement. They say Xi Jinping warned Mr. Biden to stop arming Taiwan and said that China's reunification with the island was unstoppable. He also went on to with very strident language in that. Mr. Biden, for his reply, told China's president to respect the electoral system in Taiwan, Kieran.
And Trudy, the storm at home continues around that High Court decision, the release of detainees from immigration detention. The Prime Minister's been copping a bit of flack at home, but his focus has been on and has turned to now that APEC summit, at least for a couple of days while he's there, and the meetings with world leaders who have shown up in force for the APEC summit.
Well, to be frank, Kieran, the Prime Minister believed he had no other choice but to turn up here in the United States. It's the second time he's been here in 3 weeks. The Australian side didn't want the timing to play out this way. They would have preferred to have that formal White House meeting that we saw a few weeks ago happen at the same time, so they didn't have to do 2 trips. But that's where this has landed. He's had to skip 1 day of Parliament, and in the end, that was incredibly chaotic for them back at home. But the Prime Minister wants to keep his focus here on the ground. 21 Pacific Rim economies here. So the Prime Minister will be brushing shoulders with them tonight at a leaders' reception here in San Francisco before the formal talks will begin here tomorrow local time.
Trudy McIntosh in San Francisco, appreciate it. We'll stay in touch.